G'day legends, welcome to the Pot Noodle on Celtic Down Under. I'm your host Jared, and joining me tonight is Shane. How you going, Shane?
Good, thanks, mate. Good to be with you as always on a Monday night. Had a nice weekend away in regional Victoria, so just back yesterday. Got back in time to watch the second half live, and maybe I shouldn't have rushed back.
Good country, Australia. That's all I've got to say. You didn't miss much at all, mate. So yeah, good fun. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you. We're live on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, and for the first time in a long time out on our Twitter as well, or X. So if you're on there, get involved in the comments, make it as interactive as possible. I'm sure we've all got quite a bit of venting to do from the weekend's result, and with the transfer window closing within the less than 24 hours, let's have a bit of a therapy session, I suppose. So we've got a bit to talk about tonight. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but we're just chatting off air, Shane. We'll go to that first. Just pat it out a little bit because we're Australian Celtic fans. Of course, we want to talk about it. I saw Bayer Leverkusen sacked Derek Ten Hag. I don't know if they've replaced him yet, but as an Aussie, I would love to see Ange get that gig. I think that'd be perfect for him. I've long mooted that he'd do well in Germany, and the way Leverkusen plays, I think it suits him perfect. So, what are your thoughts on that, Shane?
Yeah, it would be a good opportunity for him, and I do wonder if he's sort of been biding his time a little bit for an opening. Leverkusen would be a wonderful chance for him, really, and as you've long mooted, a move to the Bundesliga as something that I think's always been appealing and something that I think would suit Ange and Ange's football, and he wouldn't be under the same strains and pressures that he'd be if he was at an EPL club. I know there was a little bit of a rumor recently that he was getting relatively close. I think it was with the Forest owner, and they went down, I think, 3-0 to West Ham. So Nuno might be in a little bit of trouble. If there's movement there, you never know. There might be a bit of an opening. Their owner seems like someone who wants to be pretty daring and make significant inroads into Europe. So that could be a possibility. But look, I think Germany would really suit him. And as I said, I think the pressure would be very different, and it would be more about actually expanding on his football as opposed to maybe curtailing it.
Yeah, and the reason, other than being Aussies and Celtic fans, want to talk about is I was out at the Ange Postecoglou Melbourne CSC last night, so to watch the game. So I just want to give a shout out to Evan, Niall, Connor, and Matt, who I had the pleasure of watching the game with last night. Good blokes. So yeah, if you're ever in Melbourne looking to go to a game, check those guys out. They're on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find them there. But yeah, we'll crack straight into the derby convo, right? So it was a bit of an interesting one. See the starting lineup come out, and it's pretty much, I think it was exactly the team. Yeah, exactly the team I picked on Thursday's pod, so I got it right for once. There you go. That's a bit of a rarity, but I suppose it's not that hard when you know we've got bugger all players available. So it was it was slim pickings to get it right. So there you go. We got it. So it was Schmeichel, Ralston, Carter-Vickers, Scales, and Tierney, McGregor, Hatate, Engels, Balakwisha, Nigren, and Maida up front. The bench was a bit of an interesting one, though, Shane, when I looked at it, because there was no Eder. Didn't expect that because of the rumours going on there. But the other one that jumped off the page to me, well, we know Trusty's still hurt, but what's going on with Kenny? Where was he? I don't know if he's got a move or he's injured or sick or what the go was, but that was the one that I found a little bit odd.
Similar to yourself, that was the one that jumped off the page to me as being a real miss and a real strange omission, because we know what this fixture brings. We know physicality is important, and we know Kenny brings that. And obviously, Eder is away pretty much, so he wasn't going to be included. So we needed someone physical, and Yamada, as much as I like what he's brought so far, doesn't necessarily strike me as the same physical kind of player that Kenny is. So, yeah, I was a little bit shocked by him not making the matchday squad as well. I don't know the reason. In terms of the starting 11, I think there are a few potential question marks. I think your back five is pretty much locked in, or back four with Schmeichel. Midfield, I think you could maybe make an argument for name escapes me. God, why am I having a poor moment? I just realised I haven't actually set up my mic, and I'm actually on the speaker on my laptop. That's really disappointing. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm having a really bad moment. I can't think of who you bring into midfield, but for me, Engels and Calmac are my preferred midfield three. And then up front, bringing Balakwisha into Derby at Ibrox. Okay, maybe potentially that was a moot point, but I don't think Yang deserves a spot. So for me, it made sense to start Balakwisha. Maid has shown his best through the middle. To run him through the middle, and then Negrin as well. So, and I think Negrin's actually had a couple of good games out on the right wing and a couple of really good performances. So, I've padded that out really well to say I think that was a good starting 11.
The thing for me was I always thought Negrin was decent from what we've seen of him so far out on the wing, but after last night's game, he's a midfielder. That's the way I look at it. I don't want to see him against a bottom six team. He could probably do the job out there for us, but as far as I'm concerned, yeah, he's definitely a midfielder. He's not a winger. So we've got to get a couple of them in, which we'll talk about a bit later on in the pod. But yeah, it was a not ideal situation there. And then you have a look at the Rangers lineup, right? And it was a bit of a doozy because you look at their lineup and you've got like Butland, Tavernier, Digger, Suda, and Magoma. So that's where the biggest issue was for them, right? Their centre backs were weak, so you'd think you'd be pressing the liver and shit out of them, right? Getting on them. Where was the press? In the first half, what I found was when we would press, I thought we were like a step or two slow. And it was like where we would used to press and we'd be like cutting the ball off, or right as they gather, we're on them. They get it and the ball, we'd miss it by like our right foot's coming forward as the ball goes past, so we miss it. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. I don't know what the combination of everything is here, Shane, but for me, I look at it and go, are we are our players as fit as they used to be under Ange for the press? No. Or was it a combination of our players just we had a whole bunch of guys out there, you know, there's a few guys looking for a move, there's a few guys who just can't be bothered with it. What's going on? So it was a bit of a weird one watching that game.
We were off it. That's the conclusion I came to in the end. Is that in the first half, I thought we sort of started pretty poorly. We couldn't get a foothold in the game. When we did eventually get a foothold in the game, I felt like we just had absolutely no pace, no tempo whatsoever. Everything was way too slow. Everything was off by a fraction. Whether it was our ability to pass the ball, whether it was our time on the ball, we spent way too long on the ball. We were just way too hesitant. And that all led to just not being able to be creative at all. We couldn't make anything happen. We weren't penetrating at all. It was dire. Even when we did actually get a bit of control and a bit of possession, we didn't do anything with it. It was a really, really difficult first half watch. And then secondary to that is that towards the end of the half, I felt like they got a little bit of the ascendancy, and then we kind of gave up a few. They didn't have many opportunities. They were really poor themselves. Let's not pretend that they were good by any stretch. But we gave up a couple of good opportunities. One which they scored from, which was correctly, overturned, and then secondly, another couple of opportunities that they probably should have done better with. So overall, I felt we were just off it. It's hard to actually describe it any other way than we just weren't at the races. Really, it was a really, really awful and disappointing first half of football.
Yeah, pretty much. Like my thoughts on the first half was exactly that, Shane. Like I think the first thing I said to the guys I was watching the game with was I turned to them and said, "Well, that was a hard watch." Now it was not ideal, bit disappointing the way we went out there, but the thing is our defense looked sturdy. And that's the one thing. And the one guy, I don't know why people are giving him a hard time, but we're going to go through for player focus off a derby. We're going to go through every player, right? We'll just have a quick one or two sentences about him, get on with it, right? But like Scales, absolutely he's not the best footballer in terms of playing with the ball on the floor, but he just dominated that box aerially and just getting his head on everything and clearing the lines. So got to give credit where it's due. He was our best player by a country mile, in my opinion.
Just to pick up on that, I thought our two centre halves were probably our best players across the day. I thought Carter Vickers was tremendous as well, and I thought Carter Vickers was one of the few players that was actually trying to drive forward and make things happen. We really were struggling to generate anything first half, and there were times where Calmac was getting visibly frustrated with players and the recycling of the ball. But Carter Vickers was stepping forward. He was stepping into their half. He was trying to make things happen, and I thought he was good, and obviously did his defensive duties as well.
The thing as well, Shane, is I got halfway through the first half and I was just like, nah, got to just tuck my hands behind my back, lean on them because I'm going to punch a hole in the wall or something if because of his back passing. Oh, God, doing my head in.
Well, I'll give you a
Drove
little
me
bit of
mad.
a. I'll go on a little bit of tangent. I'll give you a little bit of story. As I mentioned at the top of the pod, I was coming back from a weekend away in regional Victoria, so I'd started the drive prior to the first half, and then by the time I got inside and set the TV up, we were about 3 minutes into the second half. And so we won't talk about the second half just now, but obviously that was just as dire a watch. But what came back to me in the messages was people saying, well, at least we were better, at least we were marginally better. And obviously I hadn't had the benefit of watching the first half. So when I was seeing those comments, I thought, Jesus, how bad were we in the first half then? And so being a good podcast representative, I decided to go back and watch the first half today. And geez, it was a tough watch. Oh my Lord, that was difficult.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. I'm not going to lie. So, yeah, wasn't the most fun. I don't know what I've just done here. Oh, there we go. I accidentally bumped in my browser shut down so I could hear you and everything, but I couldn't see what was going on then. Great fun. No, definitely. That was probably a better watch having my browser just change like that than the first half was. Let's be honest. Not ideal. It was just I don't know how to sum it up. There was no real rhythm to the game. There was at the start of the game, probably the first 5 minutes, I thought Tierney looked up for it and he was actually trying to beat a man. And physically, not only was that, but he got stuck into Dermonde, who anytime that there was a foul and there was a whistle, he was just charging in trying to block a free kick from being taken for us or push and shove or whatever, just playing the pantomime villain role to slow things down. And Tierney had that look in his eye. And I'm like, yes, it's great to have him back. But then as the game wore on, we're missing. I don't know. There was just something missing in the game, and I don't know whether it's. I've seen some people say it. We're missing Greg Taylor's inverting and giving that extra bit of steel alongside McGregor in the middle there. But if that's the case, why are we playing a 4-3-3? Why aren't we going back to Brendan's tried and true, the 4-2-3-1, and putting Engels next to him? Because remember in Brendan's first stint, Bruni couldn't run, so Calmac did his running for him next to him. Why aren't we playing Engels next to him to do Calmac's running for him? That makes too much sense.
It does make a fair bit of sense, and it is something that's coming up a fair bit because one of the things that was difficult watching yesterday was that Calmac got marked out of the game, or at least marked relatively heavily, and he had no influence whatsoever. That was one of the quieter games you'd see from Calmac, and we
Happened
were
every
really.
game. It's happened every game, Shane. Europe, every game in this league so far. St Mirren marked him out of it. Aberdeen marked him out of it. And now you've got the derby who's been marked out of it, plus the 2 games against Almaty. Same deal. I haven't
Maybe
seen him
so.
have a game this season.
I just don't remember him exerting as little an influence, particularly in a Glasgow derby, as he did yesterday. So yes,
Yeah.
it's probably happened all season, but this and maybe everything's just magnified because of how poor the performance is, but it really stood out to me just how absolutely almost peripheral he was yesterday.
The thing is, Shane, I'm going to say it. The form he's in now, if we had other options, should he be starting? I know he's the club captain, but I don't think he's in the form to justify a starting spot. He should be it doesn't make sense.
Um, for me, he's still a starter. I'm going to answer this in a little bit of a different way. Maybe form-wise and his performances haven't been up to scratch. That's fair, but and I've said this previously, I really get concerned with the lack of leadership on the park when he's not in the middle. And I feel like it's just an area, and sure, we've got Tierney back, but I still feel like it's an area we're lacking. And so I would be a little bit concerned omitting him without having a stronger, or at least a strong replacement leader in the pack in his absence. And if Tierney can't play 90 at the moment, then I'm not sure he's the answer to that.
I've got some random thoughts if you want to go down that rabbit hole. So I'm looking at it going, if Calmac comes off, I think everyone's too reliant on Calmac for the leadership. Remember in Ange's first season, how many leaders we had across the park? You'd look at that lineup and you'd be like, all right, you've got Calmac. You had Carter Vickers was acting like more of a leader. So was Starfelt. And then you had a bunch of other guys like, who do we have out there? Kyogo was a bit of a leader. And you had guys there. You had, was Moy the first season or second season? I can't remember, but he was a leader. Second season. Even he was in that sort of role. So you had other guys there. And everyone did their job and just worried about doing their job, where now it seems like, oh, Calmac's the leader. We've got to, everything has to go. And this is talking about the way we play. Everything has to go from defenders to Calmac to then, instead of looking up, he's getting marked out of the game. So it goes backwards and then it gets recycled. So everything has to go through him. We've got, I honestly reckon, if you were to look through our squad, who have been leaders in the past? Tierney's been club captain before, right? Kelmac, yes. Kasper Schmeichel's the Danish captain and was for years, right? You've got CCV's captained the team before. The guy who is Kelmac's backup at the moment is the former Portuguese under-21 national captain, Paulo Bernardo. There's a lot of guys there's a lot of different ways to be a leader. And we've got a lot of leaders, but no one is stepping up and being that leader. And
Well,
that's
a bit of a directive. Maybe that's coming from a bit further up than we think.
Who knows? I'm just throwing it out there because I'm looking at it, just referring back to the last manager to this one. There's a clear drop off. You've got guys there like CCV. How vocal did he used to be every game? I barely see him pointing to his right back, going, "You here," bossing them around. The guy with his arms up, telling everyone where to go. Where's Kelmac? I think we've put all our leadership on one man, where we got to spread the load around the team. But anyway, we're on a bit of a tangent there. What I'll do is I'll get some comments and then we'll just get into the second half. So I asked in the podcast title, was that the worst Glasgow derby ever? I believe this is what you're answering here, Michael. Yes. Brendan McCarthy is saying Celtic not playing the Celtic way. Pete McGee, these comments are going to be all over the joint here. Time for Casper to retire. He's lost it totally. And then Pete's following up saying Kelmac needs time out. Give someone else a chance at 6. We'll scroll through here. Pete's going all in. 2-footer on everyone here. KT isn't half the player he once was, but shouldn't have brought him back. Pete's also saying Nigrin is definitely not a winger. He's an attacking midfield. He's a Matt O'Reilly replacement. That's how I see him in this squad. And then we'll scroll through a bit more. Andrew saying this about Brendan. 3 of the worst management performances in the last week and a bit.
Yep, that's fair.
And Pete's gone in on Dazen here, saying he's not the player he was. Either he's carrying an injury or he's having his head turned by rooms of interest. And then Andrew's saying our second stringer showed more energy versus Falkirk. Where's their reward?
It's a bit of therapy session, like you said, and it's all warranted. I just want to pick up on one of the earlier comments you mentioned. I think was from Joe Hamilton about was this, and it was your question, was this the worst Glasgow derby ever as a spectacle and as a game? Yeah, I can't remember a more dull, uninteresting, really difficult game to watch in a Glasgow derby. And I can't remember who it was in our group chat that mentioned this. Sorry for not giving you the appropriate credit, whoever it might have been. But someone mentioned it was a little bit of a strange build-up to this Glasgow derby, a little bit different to usual. It was yourself. There you
I
go.
said it and so did a couple of the other boys. didn't feel like a Glasgow derby. Like you've got their fans are saying sack the manager, our fans are saying sack the board, so no one's happy. You're going into a game, they're playing terrible, we're playing terrible, and that's the result you get.
It was the word I came to when I thought about it was subdued. It was a really subdued build up to the game, and I think the performance from both teams kind of matched exactly that. Yeah, it was. As a neutral, you would have hated it. As a fan of both teams, you would have hated it. It was a really really dire game, and it's hard to find another word for it.
I'm just going to say something to be stupid here, Shane, but they went to a wide shot of the crowd at one point, and I did not see a single bottle of Bucky inside Ibrox. And like, I'm against them being a bunch of dirty bastards, but at the end of the day, that's part of the experience of a game at Ibrox, isn't it?
A
Anyway,
bad experience, yeah, sure,
yeah.
but
So we'll scroll through some more here. Maddie's kicking all the ass right here. Breaking news: Celtic signed no one.
had to clean that up for the verbals.
Yeah, yeah. So Andrew Galea, 100%. We really miss Greg Taylor. And yeah, so we'll scroll through here. And then Michael McDonald, that was embarrassing yesterday. Only impressive thing for us was our fans. Yeah, so we'll just scroll through a bit more. Yeah, I'll just jump ahead, see what's happening down here. There we go. Pete's saying it here. Oh, there we go. Lubo McNamara is saying needs someone more solid at the 6. Smell the glove is saying Matt O'Reilly away to Marseille on loan. Yeah, it's gonna bit of an interesting one, really. So, and yes, Joe, you 100% narcissist infighting at the top level have led to this. So yeah, it's a bit of been a bit of a nightmare, but yeah, we just go to the second half. Like realistically, I think we didn't talk about their goal being ruled off, right? So we'll quickly talk about that. Like that was the most obvious call, and then you see the picture Andrew Dallas put up where he had the lines next to each other for the offside, yet Suter's shoulders a good foot in front of everyone. So you know the VAR ref was at it as well. Don Robertson, absolutely pish. I got that as one of my things to talk about after this. So we'll hold off on going in on him for a minute. But if Willie was on the pod, he'd be frothing at the mouth, ready to just bark at him like a dog and absolutely lose his rag at him. Is not a fan. So yeah, but the second half, like we got out there and it was more of the same. And then we get to 60 minutes, and I just go to the guys, "Oh yeah, Brennan's going to start making his sub soon." And then sure enough, it happens, and subs they made, it was more of the same. Us, more of the same. Like, we didn't really have many guys that can impact. I thought Luke McCowan coming on as late as he did was a criminal sub. He should have come on way earlier for Hatade. And the other thing to me that jumped off the highlight of the whole second half, and it's going to be funny, was when Mioski come off and starts, blessed himself doing the cross 3 times in a row. The pub, we had a bit of a moment there. I'm going, yep, that's him done. That was pretty much the highlight of the whole second half. Yeah, over to you, Shane.
It was another dire watch, really. Let's be honest. We were only marginally better. I don't want to say we were better. I think that gives us too much credit. We were only marginally better. It really was a continuation of what we saw in the first half. The subs coming on did make a little bit of a difference, and we'll go into individual players later, as you mentioned. But there's one player in particular that I was, at least, I was a little bit impressed with when he came on. But outside of that, I felt like that they really struggled to continue any momentum that they had. So they had some good moments in the first half, but in the second half, I don't think they really had anything. And as the game wore on, I felt like they were really struggling. They were pretty loose in possession. They were giving the ball away a fair bit. And yet, at no point did we ever put them under any real pressure. At no point did we ever challenge their centre halves or anything like that. it was just really disappointing. The same issues that were prevalent in the first half were still there in the second half. Too slow on the ball, too hesitant on the ball, no penetration, no tempo to our play. It was just really, really awful. And if we'd gotten anything from the game, it would have been purely from them just falling apart, in all honesty. So, there's not much to sum up other than it was marginally better than the first half, but not an awful lot.
I think the only thing for me was when Maida went to the wing, Jamesy came on, and Shin came through the middle. The speed up the front there, and the press actually started to do something and were able to get into the pockets between their left back. Oh, Tavernier was just having all sorts of flashbacks when he had Dazen running at him, and but the gaps between their centre backs and their full backs and the two centre backs were able to work the ball, get some quick little passes and movement, and we actually shift them around a bit. And that's the only time where I thought in attack we actually looked like we were doing something. But we had I can't remember the exact stats on it, how many passes we had for the game. I'm just trying to grab them now, but yeah, it's not going to happen. But only 10% of our passes, Shane, were in the final third.
Yeah, so we had 417. Sorry, no, that's incorrect. That's accurate passes. Sorry, we had 508 passes.
Yeah, so we had 51 passes in the final third. That's it. And half of our passes were in the defensive half, recycling the ball. So
Yep, no cut through.
Yeah, so that says a lot. But I actually thought you bring Yamada on, and I like the cut of his jib. It's the nicest
Yep.
way to sum him up. He gets out there. He's not afraid to use his speed. There's a nice long close down run that he did there. He was nice and physical, but then he also was playing some nice football. So I think we've got a player there. I like the look of him. I think he's one that I want to see, depending upon what we do in the next 24 hours, I want to see Yamada getting more game time.
He was the one that came on that I was sort of mentioning before that I was okay with, that I thought did well when he came on. I thought he just gave us a little bit of a different dynamic up front. He was occupying the centre halves much better than Maeda did throughout the 65 minutes that he was leading the line. And he was physical. He was a bit better physically than I actually thought he would be. And when I was sort of lamenting Kenny not being in the lineup, Yamada did well. And I think he just added something different. There were a couple of moments, there was one moment where he was bearing down a goal, really poor touch. He'd probably want his time over again. But overall, pretty much just backing up what you said, I really liked the dynamic that he brought when he came on, and I'd be keen to see more of him. And I can kind of see a little bit on that, maybe why Brendan picked him ahead of Kenny, despite what I said earlier in the pod. And he was someone that I was pretty positive on a pretty negative day.
Yep. So what we'll do is we'll go to our player focus now, and then we'll get to Don Robertson, and then we'll wrap the game up, right? So easiest way. So looking at it, Casper, what was your thoughts on his overall performance?
I wasn't too flustered by Casper, really. Did he even have to make a save in the end? Maybe one or two. I can't even remember. They were awful. As much as we focused on ourselves and the disappointment, the fact that we didn't push them, they were awful. They offered nothing, and that's probably why the disappointment's compounded. Look, I don't even know if he had a shot to save in the end. I don't even think they had anything on target.
They had 4 shots, none on target for the game.
There was a little bit of, and not necessarily Casper's fault. There were a couple of times we were trying to play out from the back, and we looked really kind of a little bit on tenterhooks at times. Unfortunately, I don't know if that was just down to Casper or the way that they were directed to play. But overall, I had no great concerns with Casper's game. He wasn't put under any pressure.
The only things for me, Shane, were there was their goal. I think it was their goal when he got clattered and they scored, and then because it wasn't offside, he was like got himself too far back on his line, so he wasn't able to come to gather it and contest for it. But he was got himself in no man's land. But I don't know who the keeper is that would have done that. Like the positioning of Suter and to get his big ass head like that in that gap and land on it, it's kind of a bit of a tough one. So I don't know who's in goal. It would have been a tough one there. But the only downside with the amount of passes he made was there was one moment in the second half where he's passed the ball to Scales when it looked like he was trying to pass the ball out wide. I think it was to either Srirachi or Tini, I can't remember who. Scales gets the ball and gets himself into all sorts of trouble.
Mm.
There was a couple of those passes with the press where he was living a bit dangerous, not just with that pass. That's one where we got caught out, but there was a few others where he passed the guy into a bit of the old basketball terms, a hospital pass. He did a few of those where he put the guy receiving it under a fair bit of pressure. But I suppose that's what happens when you probably make the most passes out of anyone in our team, and you're the goalkeeper.
Again, another underlying statistic of just how bad yesterday was.
Yep. So what we'll do is we'll just try and rattle through quickly. So Ralston had an effort, but yeah, I think he's just proven like he's good enough as a backup, but that's about it. If we upgraded and got another someone in over the top of him, I wouldn't be upset by that.
Yeah, solid without being spectacular. Did his job. Yeah, no qualms.
Carter Vickers, we've already spoken about him. Solid, pushed forward, defensively held to shape.
I had him as man of the match for me, just ahead of Scales.
And then I had Scales as man of the match for me. Yeah, I thought he was our best player on the pitch. So there you go. It says it all.
Agreed. Agreed apart from the man of the match comment, but I thought he was fantastic.
Kieran Tierney. I was shocked that he survived 71 minutes. He, as I said early on, did his part early. Looked like he was up for it for the first 5 minutes, but then didn't see a lot out of him after that.
Yeah, pretty much looked up for it early. Obviously, he was working with Balakwisha in his first game, so maybe that understanding wasn't necessarily there, and perhaps that was impacting it. But I just didn't notice him getting forward very often. And in the second half, particularly after sort of 50 minutes, he looked really gassed, and I've got a few concerns around that. So, yeah, look, he didn't do anything particularly wrong other than the fact that he's just struggling to actually get through 60 minutes of football at the moment.
Yep. And when he's our top earner, he's earning more than the skipper and everything. It's kind of, you want more from him.
I think
Especially,
there's a discussion there about him and his return because we might leave that for later. But yeah, I think there's some concerns there that probably need to be addressed.
yeah. Middle of the park, we'll just lump them together and just rattle them off quickly. Rio, I'll go all three, then you do all three. Rio, thought he seemed like he was anywhere but on the Ibrox pitch. Didn't really do much. McGregor, was spoken about him. I don't need to go in there. Engels, I thought he gave a good account. Didn't really notice him in the first half, but that's probably because I couldn't hear the commentary at the pub I was at because there was a band playing the whole time.
Yeah, I agree on the Engels comment. Just he seemed invisible first half, wasn't getting on the ball at all. Didn't even know he was on the pitch at one stage. Hatate getting on the ball, couldn't make anything happen. Yeah, and McGregor we've talked about. Not much to write home about with the midfield three.
And then the front three, Nigren, not a right winger, but gave a fair effort for the whole 90. Balakwisha, debutant, starting. It's a bit hard to judge him in that environment where what had been in the club for like a day of training and then get out there and play. So got to build those combinations, but I think he'll come good for us. And then Dazen, I don't know what's going on there. I think he just needs to shave his head and get the angry look back and get on with it.
Yeah, look, I don't want to be too hard on Balakwisha, but he wasn't great. And it's his first outing. I'm sure we've got a player there and he'll come good, but he really struggled for pace. He couldn't get into the game at all. And when he did, he just didn't make anything happen. He couldn't beat a man. He couldn't get past Tavernier. Maeda just seemed like he couldn't get involved at all. He was really struggling to have any sort of impact on the game. And I don't think he was helped by the service from the midfield, in all fairness. But when he had to work hard to get into the game, I just didn't notice him. And Nigren gave a good account of himself. But as you said earlier, I think we've sort of solved the is he a midfielder, is he a winger question now after yesterday.
Just back to Balakwisha quickly, like the thing is, Shane, I don't think he understands what we're trying to do. And that's why he wasn't sure, should I be trying to beat a man and get past? Because he did it one time and there was no one for him to pass to. He put a cross across the whole box. And then there's another time. So then after that, he's like, you see him, he keeps looking to the bench, looking to the bench, looking back at Kelmac, looking at the midfield. What should I be doing? So I think he's playing in two minds there. And then you get that in your first game when you're still trying to get used to things. So I'm giving him a pass mark at the moment.
Yeah, ditto. Yeah, ditto.
Then to the guys on the bench, Luke McCowan didn't get enough game time as far as I'm concerned. So I can't judge him there. Yamada already spoken about him. Jamesy, spoken about him already as well. Thought he changed the game when he came on. And our other debutant, Srirachi, yeah, I thought he looked the part. He was looked up for it. Took a sore one, won a free kick by diving, and I was like, yes, we've got there's our South American diving, loving it.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Srirachi just yet. I didn't see enough of him in that small amount of time on the pitch to make a definitive call. Gave away a really stupid foul, which was really frustrating. But apart from that, didn't put a foot wrong. I thought Yamada was a big positive for me. I loved what he brought, and Jamesy, to his credit, was working hard as well, as you said. So, and Luke, as you said earlier, he should have come on sooner. I think it was way too late to leave him on the bench. You need that kind of that player that he is. He's always going to take a shot. He's always going to try and get in position and ping one, right? And we were really lacking that. So,
Yep. All right, so we'll get through some comments here quickly. So Andrew Galea is saying our manager seems uninterested. You also Pete McGee saying Jamesy Forrest and Shin made the difference, so Nigrin move into the centre. Joe Hamilton, yep. This ties into the very next thing we wanted to say. Don Roberts Hun was their man of the match.
I appreciate the pun.
Yeah. Whatever. Yep. And McLaughlin, here we go. So we're tied into Robertson there. So all the Hun player had to do was stay down and hold his face, and Robertson would stop play. And 100%, like the amount of times where there's a 50-50, they get bumped, the guy falls down, free kick. But then there's a play the other way where he's standing there 10 meters away and he's looking, and there's three fouls from different players, and it's play on, play on, play on, every single one of them, and there's no advantage. Guy was an absolute corrupt bastard. That's the easiest way to sum him up.
The most egregious one for me was the Maeda one where he got whacked in the mouth. I think it was with Connor Barron, and Connor Barron was actually grabbing Maeda's shirt and basically, flicks his arm back, catches him in the mouth. Barron actually won the free kick. Robertson blew up and gave him the free kick, and it was just a staggering decision. For me, they were very physical. They were getting into us a fair bit. They were pushing the players over. They were just trying to do what they usually do, and he had no control over that. You know, the amount of times I was seeing Celtic players get bundled off the ball or get knocked, and he wasn't doing anything to curtail that. Diamande went through his little run again of committing so many offences before he finally gets booked, which is something that happens almost every Glasgow derby at the moment. And you're right. Whenever something would happen, even in the slightest to them, they would take a tumble or hit the pitch, and he'd blow up for it. And even for things where they didn't actually take a tumble, he'd still blow up for it. It was another really poor performance. You need someone who's going to actually have the whistle, who's actually going to stamp it out. And he was quick to tell Tierney off early for a slight bump. I can't remember, it might have been on Diamande when there was a throw to Celtic. And yet outside of that, he ignored basically every other blatant push from a Rangers player onto a Celtic player. And it was just another really poor refereeing performance in a big game.
The thing is, Shane, like there was a thing last season, like hashtag patterns of assistance that went online in terms of the refereeing and VAR and all this sort of stuff. And that's the best way I can sum up how he called it. Like everything was a way that he was able to give them some assistance. Like, as you're saying, they're getting away with everything. We get warnings for just holding our ground. They can crowd us every time we're trying to play a quick free kick. Then we do the one time we get away with a quick free kick, Kelmac gets the ball, quick pass out to, I think it was Balakwisha on the wing, who put the ball through to Dazen. and he blows his whistle for a foul, calls it back or whatever. Like, let it play through to VAR. I actually said in the pub, I would have just kept playing, scored it, and then made VAR look at it. It'd be worth the yellow card if worst case scenario. But, it's just the guy's a joke. Just the way he tries to assist made no sense. He's playing to the galleries and where he knew where he was, so he had to look after things. But yeah, it was just an absolute ridiculous thing here. And there we go, Pete McGee saying at least Engels is prepared to do the dark arts now and again. Yeah, he hit a couple of nice little ones in the derby. I will give him credit on that.
And I want to give him a shout out. I'm pretty sure at halftime he approached Don Robertson as well. I saw a Celtic player when he blew up for halftime go straight towards him to talk to him, and I'm guessing it was to basically tell him, "Hey, what are you doing? This is pretty poor. Why are you blowing up so many times fouls against us?" I'm pretty sure it was Engels. It definitely wasn't Calmac. I'm pretty sure Engels was the one that made the line to him. So maybe just getting back to our chat before about leaders on the pitch, maybe we've actually got one there that we need to actually put a bit more responsibility on.
Yep, just having a quick look at something here. Ex-Celtic flop Shane Duffy is set to leave Norwich City. No thanks. I just saw that pop up. Johnny Kenny's got his first Republic of Ireland call-up.
Yes, good on him.
And yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing. Yeah, and I've just seen apparently Callum Osmond's off to Motherwell on loan.
I wonder, because I don't think Kenny was in the initial matchday squad, so which means I think he must have come in for someone as a potentially Eder that he's replaced.
Yeah, Eder's gone. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Eder's off. So there we go. So yeah, we'll go into the transfer stuff. So obviously closes. How many hours now till the window closes? Bugger all, isn't it? About 11 hours. Coming up on 11 hours.
Someone put it in the comments earlier. I think they said 11 hours. So there you go.
So we're looking at that. We brought in left back cover with Srirachi. Our top left wing target and Balak Wishes come in. Eder and Yang potentially are away. The Daily Record on a Hunrag is saying that we're going to be potentially bringing in 4 players today. What business do you think we'll complete today, Shane?
Geez, it would be rare for us to bring in 4 players on deadline day. That would be remarkable. And I'm you have to forgive my negativity, but I can't see that happening. It's just maybe I'm just too used to what this club does and the way it actually brings players in. I just can't see it happening. If it does, amazing. Look, I don't know specifically what business we're going to do. It wouldn't surprise me if we're in for that striker. I've forgotten his name already, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll do it for you. Dahlberg. Dahlberg.
There you go. So it wouldn't surprise me because I think it's an area we absolutely do need strengthening, particularly if Eder's away. The one thing for me that's become glaringly obvious, and I'd be interested in your take on this, and it ties in with the match yesterday. I was dismayed by just how one-paced we were across the pitch yesterday. We were so slow. We had no pace whatsoever. And I'd be almost looking at seeing what we could bring in that is actually going to inject a little bit of pace into this team, because I was surprised just how slow we looked. And so you've got Tierney. He's lost a yard of pace. He's not the same that he was. Ralston, he's not able to get up and back the same way that AJ does. And it just felt like across the pitch we were way too slow. So I'd be looking to actually bring in some players that are going to inject some pace, not just some pacey wingers up front.
Well, on that, Shane, it's a perfect little segue for me. I'm going to bring up the transfer mark to what we've done so far. So these are the guys that have departed that we've got fees for, okay? Not loaned out. So Kun on that right wing. Quick, right?
Yep.
Then you look at what's come in. They've got Nigrin listed as a right winger when we've discussed early on he's not. They've got Inamura as a centre back. He's a left back. Yamada, yep, cool. Balak Wisher is got some speed about him, so's Yamada, right? So we have done a little bit of the speed there. But I agree with you. We need a bit quicker, and we need a bit of we do need some size as well in the middle of the park. So like the rumours were from that Daily Record article, Shane, that we were going to bring in 4 players. We're going to sign Casper Dolberg as one of the strikers. We're going to bring in 2 wingers and a wild card striker, is what they're saying.
Wild card striker.
That's the wording. Ridiculous, right?
It
So
is.
I shared that post in the group chat, and then Liam's like, "Oh, could be in for that Ambrosio from Napoli because he was going to go to Cremonese, but they signed Jamie Vardy. So could potentially be him. It could be the kid from Crystal Palace that both us and Rangers are being linked with as well. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a strange one. One of the wingers could be Sebastian Tenecti. Apparently, Hammerby want £5 million for him, and I've just seen that Anderlecht's chairman has stepped down. So the guy we've been negotiating the Dolberg move has just said, "Yep, see us done." So now that could be completely cooked. So yeah, fun times.
It's not unusual for us to go down this path and get a
Okay.
little bit into it and be too slow, and then eventually something changes and the whole world moves differently.
Yeah, and heavy vibes are saying it here. 4 loans. And yeah, smell the God saying that. Yep. Everyone's agreeing there. Thanks.
Wildcard strike is probably going to be Gary Hooper.
Yeah. Thanks, Boston, the prisoner of war. Legend. Thanks for that. Appreciate the support. Robert Gibson saying Celtic don't multitask, 1 to 2 shite players per window. Yeah, so it's gonna be a bit of an interesting one to see how it all plays out. I'm looking at it going, no, he hasn't smelled the glove, but I'll throw it in there. Has Danny Ings been mentioned yet? Yeah, for me, I just look at it and go, it's going to be Brendan's Rolodex, agents, approved agents. What's that guy who used to get all the Israeli players from back in the day? Dodo Dahan or something like that? We're not getting any players from him, but that sort of agents, what I mean, like the preferred ones. It's going to be a nightmare. Going to be an absolute shambles. I reckon tomorrow morning we'll wake up over here and there'll still be a couple of hours left to go till the transfer window's done with. And yeah, we'll be looking at going, did we sign anyone? Ah, lovely. Perfect. So, going to be a bit of a Pete.
That did make me chuckle, Pete.
Good on you, Pete. Yeah, so it's gonna be one of them there. So all I'm gonna ask you, Shane, is if all this happens, and we brought in a bunch of those players, is it all a bunch of too little, too late? It's a little too. Is it a start again? It's a bunch of too little, too late for me with the board. Right, we should have done our work earlier. The players look flat, worn out. Brendan looks like he's down tools. He's doing that whole quiet quitting sort of thing and can't be asked. There's some players that look like they probably would rather not be there. It's going to take a magician to turn it around. So, what's your thought, Shane? Are you
Oh
expecting us to bring players in? Are you thinking Brendan's going to be like deuces and just walk out of the club and piss off because he's not backed? What are you thinking?
he was quite frustrated in his press conference yesterday, listening to him after the game, and he was very much highlighting the fact that the way they played wasn't what he expected from the team, and he was very frustrated about what he saw on the pitch. And look, I'm not reading into it too much. I don't think he'll leave. I think he will see out the season at the very least. But it's quite clear there continues to be you could say divide. It's probably a chasm now, to be honest, between Brendan and the board, and I don't think it's recoverable, unfortunately. Look, I think we'll make a couple of moves. I do think we'll probably bring in two. I can't see us bringing in four unless they're some players on a free or something like that, which isn't what we're after right now. We need to spend. We need quality, but we needed this a few weeks ago before we lost to Kairat on penalties and missed the Champions League, and that for me is going to be the overarching feeling no matter what happens tomorrow, sadly. Like, we could bring in four incredible players, but that opportunity and for them to play in the Champions League is now gone. And it's something that shouldn't have happened. We should be, with the way that everything panned out, be in the Champions League. And that's a massive miss. And it's hard to look past it in any more positive way, unfortunately.
The thing with that, Shane, is okay. The difference between guaranteed money in the Champions League and Europa League is what, about £20 million? We've
Yeah.
already made that with the Kun money anyway. We haven't really replaced him. Eder goes out, money's coming in. We've already covered that off. The board's done their job of, asset stripping and everything. So we've got to get some players in. But yeah, we should have had players in a month ago, at least, so they're there for the qualifiers. Like, why couldn't we have had Balak in 3-4 weeks ago? So he could have played in Europe. Because, what's the point of bringing Simpson Pusey into the club? He's not going to play. And he was one of our registered players in the Champions League. When we could have brought Balak in that spot and actually had a winger there who could, do something. I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me.
We've gone from, and I don't want to really circle back to what happened last week because it's obviously elicits quite negative feelings. But we've gone from pushing Bayern in the round of 16 to missing the Champions League completely, and most of that comes from just people sitting on their hands, not willing to dive into their pocket, not willing to do business early to get quality players in that we know that we needed to get back into the Champions League. And it wasn't even a case of bringing players in to get back into the group stage. It was about how do we progress further from here after we've actually done a really good job. And we've missed that opportunity. Is Brendan completely not to blame does Brendan still carry the can a little bit for this? Definitely. Absolutely he does. And the players too, to an extent, right? Because those performances against Kyra and what we saw yesterday were really poor for a group of players that probably should be doing better. But overall, we know where we've needed to improve. We know the kind of players we've needed to bring in to make that progress, and we haven't done it. And so the bulk of the blame still unfortunately lies with those who actually manage that section.
Andrew Galea has something that ties into what you said there, Shane, which was, why do we recruit players the manager won't use and doesn't want? And the question off the back of that is, yeah, why do we recruit them? But at the same time, the club's probably thinking, and this is not me back. I'm not being a board apologist, 100% making sure, because I think those bastards need to get out of the joint. They need someone to buy them out, right? But I'm looking at this going, maybe the board's thinking, why would I want to spend big money for the second year in a row on players who aren't guaranteed starters in Brendan's system, like Engels and Eder and Trusty, right? There's 20-something million pound he spent on those three players. None of them are guaranteed a start at the moment, right? On top of that, they're probably thinking, well, we want to do that again if there's no guarantee the manager won't sign a new contract and he's not going to be there next year. And then we're going to have to sell all these players and bring in new players in for the new guy.
Yeah, and look, that's fair. And, speaking specifically about the Kyrat games, Brendan got both of those wrong, in my opinion. His team selection was
Absolutely.
wrong. The way that he set up the team was wrong, and we should have had enough to get through. So he has to carry the can, in my opinion, for those two sets of results in particular. But I think if you're looking at this an overall arching kind of viewpoint from, say, the start of this season to now and say, well, where do we kind of channel most of the frustration? I still think it's those above Brendan, but Brendan definitely has to take a lot of responsibility as well.
Heavy vibes are saying Rodgers or the board has to go, and the board's not moving. And then you've got Henrik McLaughlin saying, don't want to sound too reactionary, but the team needs an overhaul. This is basically Ange's team. It's run its course. Yep. So, yeah, I just look at it and it's just the easiest way to sum this up is, yeah, I think a lot of players are coming to the end of their shelf life at the club. We need to reinvent the thing here. But I've said it a few times, like, if we're going to be bringing in players and the manager doesn't want to play them, there's one or two options. There's two ways to fix this. And they're like, why we want to spend money now when the guy next season's not going to want those players? That situation is controllable if you have a bloody director of football. And then what he would have is a list of 5 to 10 players for every position. So if someone gets sold, these are the next guys that we want to recruit. He'd have every position. He'd have the same list for coaches. If the manager moves on, this is what we built. This is the way we play. This is the Celtic way of playing football. These guys would suit what we want. Can we get numbers 1, 2, 3, or 4? No, we can't. All right. 6, 7, 8, they're young guys up and coming who play that type of football. They're the next batch. Bring them through. They're you guys like your Ronnie Dahlia and so on, right? or you put a Kevin Muscat in there, just throwing him in for an Aussie just to see if the comments, abuse me. But I'm just thinking, like, that's what you'd have that list for. You need a director of football in to oversee it. That way, the recruitment's structured, the board is less involved. You basically have the manager or the coach saying, "I need this player for this position." Cool. Go to the football guy. He finds him. Then that guy goes to the board. Say, "This is what we want. This is what we're spending. Deal with it." And your budgets get sorted. And there's less mucking around. That's what needs to happen. So yeah, I just think it's all things considered. We're easiest way to sum it up, Shane, is that we have. It's not the board's asleep at the wheel or the club's asleep at the wheel. This is all given us. It's all us causing issues that are all avoidable. We're our own worst enemy here. It's just not. It's not good at all.
That's something we all feared. Let's be honest with you. It's something that we all worried about, that this was going to happen. And we thought, well, no, we might just make it through and everything will be okay. And okay, it didn't happen this time, but we still made it through the Champions League and things like that. And it didn't. And everything's magnified now. Everything is under the microscope from our perspective and from other fans' perspective. And the frustration is palpable. And that's what happens when you sit on your hands and then the results don't go your way.
So, just going to quickly rattle something off. Newcastle United are signing Wissa from Brentford, which means Brentford have expressed interest in Dazen. So, there we go.
I mean, again, not to give anyone ideas in terms of selling him, but he is probably at the peak of his value at the moment. Most certainly on his form so far this season. There's obviously going to be a fair bit of buy-in because of how good he was last season. He's arguably at his peak now. So if you're getting a good offer for him, I could see why selling him would be enticing. Not that we're going to do anything with the money if we do get it, but I would hope to keep hanging on to him. I think, I'd like to keep him. Put it that way.
Same. I'm 100%. Like, we can't afford to lose Dazen at this point in time. Like, he doesn't seem with it. But we need to keep him if we can. Just gonna bring this picture up here quickly because it's our Lord and Savior Dazen Mater. We need to keep him at the football club. But anyway, I think we'll wrap the pod up there. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate each and every one of you across our Twitter/X, YouTube, and Facebook page. Shane, you got a final thought?
Yeah, I'm going to give a quick shout out to a former player that I used to watch. He played for my West Coast Eagles in the AFL here, and he was someone who I enjoyed watching play footy, about a decade or so ago now. Shout out to Mitch Brown, former AFL player for the West Coast Eagles. He came out and did a very courageous thing last week. He came out and outed himself as the first sort of bisexual AFL footballer. In the history of the AFL, we've never had a player sort of come out or mention that they were bisexual before. It's always been something that's been, just never mentioned, and people have found it too difficult to bring up. But he was brave enough to come out and say that. And look, it was a really personal thing for him to say, and I think it's he's getting a lot of plaudits for it, and good on him for coming out and feeling like he can say it now and tell everybody that that's who he is as a person. And hopefully it helps break the stigma of homophobia in the AFL and helps continue to drive that down, because it's a scourge and we want to drive that down. And I think his announcement in coming out and saying that was very brave and will help other players who are either bisexual or homosexual in the AFL feel more comfortable with who they are as a person. So shout out to you, Mitch. That was a really brave thing to do, and you're a star.
So Shane goes all serious like that, and my final thought's pretty simple. If you're gonna use hand sanitizer, make sure it's sanitizer and not sunscreen. They're not the same thing. Anyway, cheers everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.